Hey, happy Tuesday. Welcome back to Tuesday Tip in Real Estate with me, Sheila. And I have a very special guest today, and it's Charlotte Wheeler. And Charlotte, tell them where you're from.
So I'm originally from Florida, but I'm now a Georgia native, I guess you could say that.
Yeah.
And I'm with Nonprofit Mortgage.
Nonprofit Mortgage. And we're going to get into that in just a little bit. But Charlotte is a wonderful person that I often do business with. And one of the questions that I always get from especially first-time home buyers is, what is my very first step? And the very first step would be to get a loan pre-approval. And that's what Charlotte is here to help us with. Now, Nonprofit Mortgage is a mortgage broker. And there is a difference between a mortgage broker and a mortgage lender. And Charlotte is going to tell us a little bit about the difference.
Well, thanks so much, and thanks for having me here,
Oh,
Miss
thank
Sheila.
you.
I miss Sheila because she's so special. But you hit the nail right on the head. So before you start thinking about even going out and getting a property, it's really important that you get that pre-approval. And I'm glad you used that term, because sometimes people talk about a pre-approval and a pre-qualification.
Right,
it's like, what's the difference? What is that about? So to kind of break it down, pre-approval is kind of a little bit of a step beyond the pre-qualification, because pre-qualification might mean I'm going to walk you through what the income you have coming in versus the debts you have going out, and we're going to figure out what your debt to income ratio is, and that's just the lender's way of figuring out how much can you actually afford to pay them back. Right?
Based on what they've said.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. So that is when we do that kind of that first phone call, or if you meet in person, that's the first thing you kind of figure out. So you know how much house you can go out and buy. Because I can imagine if you're showing properties, Sheila, when you go out there, if somebody doesn't know what they can afford and they fall in love with the house and then they find out it's not in their budget, that's probably like not a good feeling, right?
No,
so the first,
not for anybody.
I would think not. So you want to know what it is that you could be pre-approved for, so that you would know what to go out and look for. Okay. So pre-qualification, that may be where we just talk about what it is that you have coming in versus going out, and then we figure that debt to income ratio and figure out how much house you can do. But where we kind of stop there is at that point, we've told you that, but I haven't collected any documents. Like if your W-2, for example, if you have a job where you get a W-2, right? If you're self-employed, I haven't collected any of your tax returns. So that's a pre-qualification. I'm telling you, based on what you've told me, this is what we think you can do. Okay. I may have also asked you, what do you think your credit score was the last time you looked? And if you know that, then if I can give you some preliminary figures, I'm going to be doing that based on where you think you are. Does that make sense?
Right.
But now when I move to a pre-approval, I take it a step further and actually get a full application from you. We would pull your credit, and then we now price the estimate for like your mortgage payment based on what we now know your credit score is. And maybe there's a debt on there you didn't realize you had, right? Does that ever happen? Yeah. So that's when we can do a pre-approval letter. A lot of times we might also run your file through what we call an automated underwriting system. And that just is what something like all lenders kind of use to be able to see if it'll just say, yes, this person can do this loan. Right? Okay. So that's kind of the basic difference there. Now, did you want me to go right into the difference between the mortgage broker? What do you want to know next?
Tell us basically what a mortgage broker is, first of all, because a lot of us don't know.
Right.
We just think all lenders are a catch one, catch all. Yeah. Right. You know, so give us the definition or what a mortgage broker is.
Great question.
And then give us the difference between the two.
Yeah, so a mortgage broker, like myself, like you mentioned with Nonprofit Mortgage, what we do is we work with a number of lenders. Our particular company works with about 15 to 20. And what we do is we see exactly what kind of loan products they have available. So that way, when you bring me a client, which I love when you do, right, then we will be able to determine what lender may meet their needs the best. Okay. And what that looks like is if you walk into like your local bank or a local credit union, that you're only going to have what they have on their menu. Does that make sense?
And they're considered to be direct lenders.
There you go. Because they actually are the ones giving you the physical money. So
Okay.
when you work with a broker, we are pairing you with a similar lender, right?
Okay.
But they're the ones that are going to provide the money. But we're going to walk you through every step of the way. The broker is going to walk you through every step of the way, still doing all of your documents, still communicating with that underwriter who, helps to put the decision together. But the difference is the direct lender, they're physically providing the money to you.
Okay.
Whereas when we're a broker, we're going to connect you with that lender and make sure everything goes smooth. But at the end of the day, it's that lender who will be providing you with the money, not the broker.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Okay, so one of the benefits of using a mortgage broker versus using a direct lender is the fact that you all can obtain information from different lenders.
Correct.
Multiple lenders.
Multiple lenders.
Okay.
And and as we were kind of talking before before we were on camera, sometimes you have folks that are a little gun shy about having their credit pulled because
Right.
they feel like, oh, I've had some challenges. Who's going to work with me? That's the beauty of when you work with a mortgage broker.
Right.
Because if you come to me and maybe you have a 500 credit score, you're thinking there's no way, because maybe the people you've talked to in the past say we can't help you unless you're at a 620 or 640.
Right.
Well, we have lenders, at least I could think of 4 right off the top of my head, that can do a loan down to 500 credit score. Now they may have
That's
different
awesome.
criteria, right? So they may have different criteria, like for example, if you're doing an FHA loan, which is just a loan backed by the federal government, where if you get in a pinch, then they will be able to make sure the lender's okay, right?
Yeah.
So let's just say you wanted to do an FHA loan, because a lot of times they're going to have lower rates, lower payments. Well, if this lender will let you do a 500 score, they may say you'll have to do 10% down instead of 3.5%. So there are some things, right, that make it different. And maybe you decide, oh, I really don't want to do 10% down, because if you think about it, if you're buying a $100,000 home, that's $10,000.
Right.
So maybe $3,500, which would have been 3.5%, might have been better. So now if you work with a mortgage broker, perhaps we can help you to work on that credit score so you can get to where you can do 3.5% down. So that's another thing. Sometimes the mortgage broker is not saying that a direct lender has a loan officer that may not have time to do that, but when you work with a mortgage broker, there are different loan officers that might make that part of what they do, is to help you with your credit. And that's very important, because for a lot of people who've been left out and not been able to proceed, that's one of the biggest things that we constantly see, is people struggling with how to move forward with their credit.
Right. All right. That's an excellent point.
Mhm.
Excellent point. So here's another question that we often get. Well, I'm a first-time buyer. I don't have a whole lot of money, or maybe they bought a home and haven't bought one over a number of years, so they're still considered to be a first-time home buyer, but they don't have a whole lot of money, and they're looking for ways that can enhance their money and don't have to put down a whole lot of their own money.
Correct.
What type of down payment assistance programs are you all can you have available, or do you have available? Is it greater than working with a direct lender, because there are greater possibilities for different down payment assistance programs?
Another excellent series of questions there, or a question there. So a couple things I want to point out from what you just said. If you haven't bought a home or owned a home in the last 3 years,
Right.
then most loan programs are going to consider you as a first-time home buyer.
Right.
So that's great. So maybe you bought a house 10 years ago and you haven't owned one since, you're automatically considered a first-time home buyer. That's
Right.
excellent news.
Right.
That opens up opportunities again. Sometimes folks don't know that.
Right.
They don't think of themselves as a first-time home buyer because they're like, I
I
bought a home
before.
right?
Yeah.
It defies common sense, but basically it is 3 years for most products, FHA conventional especially, right? So that's thing one. Thing two, that's the other thing about working with a mortgage broker. Because we have those access to all the different lenders, we know who works with what, right? So let's just say there are some lenders that will allow you to use a down payment assistance program, right? You can figure out and tailor it. So if we know you need down payment assistance, part of our evaluation is going to be to see, okay, do you qualify for ones that are based on income, right?
Right.
And then there's some programs out there now, even for conventional loans, where the address you actually live in can determine whether or not you're eligible for funds from the lender. right? So that's one of the things you always want to
The
make
address that they're
currently in.
Okay.
Great. The one that you're currently in, because what it is there's certain parts across the country where they've been designated as areas they want to improve homeownership. So that's why they go by the current address. It's called the Home Ready First grant. So a lot of lenders will have that, but your broker has to know who offers what, right? And who takes advantage of what. And that way, if we know that that's something you need, that's the lender we're going to pair you with.
Right.
Instead of trying to like go to this one lender, and if that lender doesn't have those different things,
then you're
kind of
out.
You're right.
Yeah.
You have what they have. It's kind of like when you go to an Italian restaurant, but maybe you want Indian food. You're not gonna get you're not gonna, unless they just order it in, right? So that's kind of the way the mortgage industry is built, where the brokers can now kind of widen out what's out there for you, and maybe there's something you hadn't thought of, and because we know your full situation, then we know, oh, well, if you go with this lender, they do this, this, and this, and we compare this, and they allow you to do this. So that is one of the things about that. I will say, as far as down payment assistance, the main differences are going to be whether they're income based or whether they're just based on first time home ownership, right? Or that, like I said, based on your current address. One thing you'll want to keep an eye on is certain lenders will have their own down payment assistance. Now, the thing with that is sometimes they'll charge you a higher interest rate. Okay. So whereas maybe you're in the 5s or 6s, and again, all rates are relative, so we don't normally just throw rates out there, because that's a big question that we always get. What are the rates are right now? And I was like, that's not something you would just say that this is your rate, because everything is all relative. And it depends on credit score, income, all of that. But if you have a lender that charges a little more, mortgage brokers, what we do is we make sure that we show you comparisons. So when you send me someone, Sheila, what I would do is, after I find out what your needs are, I might give you an FHA loan estimate from this person, an FHA loan estimate from this lender, and say, okay, this is what this looks like if we add down payment assistance from this lender. This is what your situation would look like if we don't do down payment assistance. And then you can decide. Whereas before, a lot of folks would just go in and they just get one thing offered to them and that's it. But I always feel like, and I feel like you'll see a lot of mortgage brokers in particular, they want you to know the best options that are out there for you. So you can make a decision, right? Because I always say at the end of the day, you're the one going to be paying for it. You're the one living in the house. So you need to be able to make the decision of what works best for you. Okay.
Well, I think that's about it. You've given us some great information. Mortgage broker versus direct lender. Let's remember that. Now, if you are in need of purchasing a home, then contact me so that I can get you in touch with Charlotte, who's with
Nonprofit mortgage. There you go. I know. It always seems weird because you're like, nonprofit mortgage. How do you even have that? But that's another story.
But she does excellent work. I can vouch for her. And if you like this video, if you like the information in it, please go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Tuesday Tip in Real Estate. And please share it out with people that you know. We'd be glad to help you buy and sell a house. And as always, you can reach me at sheilajamesrealestate@gmail.com, sheilajamesrealestate.com, or 678-572-6958. And I will have Charlotte's information in the description down below. So please contact us. And as always, stay safe. Take care.